No more? Okay.
All right. So the legal voters of Windsor Central Modified Unified Union District, comprising the voters of the towns of Bridgewater, Killington, Plymouth, Pomfret, Reading, and Woodstock, all grades pre-K through 12, and the town of Barnard, grades 7 through 12, are hereby warned and notified to meet at the Woodstock High School Middle School Teagle Library, located in Woodstock, Vermont, on Monday, March 11, 2019 at 6 p.m. for the purpose of transacting business not involving voting by Australian ballot. Article 1, to elect a moderator for the ensuing year. Are there any nominations for moderator for the ensuing year?
I nominate Matt Maxim.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Raina. Are there any other nominations? Seeing none, we will close nominations and vote. All those in favor of Matt Maxim as moderator for the ensuing year, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Article 2, to elect a clerk who shall assume office upon election and serve a one-year term or until the election and qualification of a successor. Are there any nominations for a clerk?
I nominate Tim Bishop. Seconded.
Second by Sandy Patel. Are there any other nominations for clerk? Seeing none, we will close nominations. All those in favor of Tim Bishop for the office of clerk, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Article 3, to elect a treasurer who shall assume office upon election and serve a one-year term or until the election and qualification of a successor. Are there any nominations for a treasurer?
I nominate Callista Brennan.
I second that.
Nominated and seconded. Any other nominations for treasurer? Seeing none, we will vote on Callista Brennan as treasurer. All those in favor?
I can't hear you.
Sorry. All those in favor of Callista Brennan as treasurer, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed,
Aye.
nay. Sorry about that. All right, Article 4. To determine and approve compensation, if any, to be paid by to district officers. I think the most effective way would be for somebody to make a motion with specific amounts, if any, for each of the offices. We have a moderator, a clerk, a treasurer, and our school directors. Then we can debate and amend if you want to change those amounts. That would be.
I'll make a motion for moderator for $50, clerk $0, treasurer $6,500. Those are the only people I know.
Well, why don't we do one at a time?
Could we do one at a time?
It's warned as one article.
Okay, so then I'm going to add in for the district offices, which are the board members, I believe. I will add on to the motion that the.
Let's get that seconded, and then
okay.
then we can take an amendment.
Second.
Okay.
Pamela.
Okay. Great.
I'll
Yes.
make a motion for the board members, for the co-chairs of the board, who put in over 600 hours a year, each year, to receive a stipend of $5,000, and for each board member to receive $50 per meeting, up to 40 meetings, for a total of $2,000, must attend the meetings. I'd also like to amend, I believe you said the $50 for the moderator.
Yes,
That would be $50 per meeting if there's more than one.
correct. Thank you.
All right. So there is an amendment. Did everyone hear Jim's amendment? Was to compensate the co-chairs of the board $5,000 per year and board members $50 per meeting, up to $2,000. Is there a second for that?
Second.
Can I have the name of the second, please?
Yeah.
Vito, V-I-T-O, Rasenas, R-A-S-E-N-A-S.
Thank you. At this point, we can discuss the amendment before. So, is there any discussion?
Just could somebody review current compensation levels for those positions?
Sure. Do you have that, Randy?
So currently, the moderator does not receive a stipend, the district clerk does not receive a stipend, the treasurer is currently paid $6,500 a year, and none of the board members receive a stipend.
And historically, the moderator at town meetings are paid between $50 and $100. And when we were local boards, the stipends for district members varied between, I believe, $250 and $2,000.
And all the numbers we're talking about are annual, except for the per meet, one stated as per meeting? Correct. The 6,500?
Yes.
Correct.
Do you feel left out?
Are there any other?
Is it changing our taxes, or is this budgeted in already for this year?
This is out of the SU budget, which is flexible.
Okay.
I'm sure there's some.
We got a few extra dollars there.
Any other questions about the amendment, first of all? So if there are no questions about the amendment, let me just reread it as I understand it. So the first part is just the amendment to compensate the co-chairs of the board $5,000 per year, and each board member $50 per meeting, up to $2,000 annual. All those in favor, what's,
Attendance required for the.
attendance required, okay.
And can you clarify the $5,000? You keep saying it's for the co-chairs. Are they splitting it, or is
It's
it each?
per chair.
Per
Per,
co-chair.
thank you.
Okay, yep, it's important that we get the wording right, thank you. Per co-chair. So, the amendment is $5,000 per co-chair annually, and $50 for each meeting attended by a board member, up to $2,000 per year.
I'm sorry, can I ask a question?
Yes.
Still? Why are we changing this so dramatically from last year?
Well, last year we asked for this, okay? Well, last year, if you were here at this meeting,
I was.
I made the same motion.
Mr. Moderator,
Yes.
can people please address the moderator?
Yes.
Would you like the moderator to ask the question, answer the question then?
But you heard the question, and Jim, you have the floor.
So, Mr. Moderator?
Yes.
Last year, the same motion was put on the floor. It failed by a few votes, okay? I mean, if anyone that's been on this board understands that they are here for the taxpayers, I think this actually makes you understand each time you go to a meeting who you're here for. The co-chairs, in my mind, which I am not a co-chair, and I will never be a co-chair on this board, put in more than 600, 700 hours a year working on teaching negotiations and contracts and many other issues that go on in the school. And once you become a board member on here, by the time you drive to the different locations and then get yourself something to eat and everything, I just believe that's a fair amount of money. And as Paige had said, prior to us being a full board as a union district or a MUD, some towns were giving each individual elementary school board members a stipend.
Right,
So that's the motion on the floor.
right. Are there
We
any
can have
other?
the vote if no one else wants to have discussion.
Right, as long as there are questions, we haven't gone to a vote yet. Yes.
Can we just tell for the people who are here voting on it, how many board members there are and a total of what this would be coming out of the
So
budget? Like, we're saying 2,000 per person, like, just what's the
How many
What's
board
the total
members?
$42,000
$42,000 would be the total for everything?
for 16 board members at $50 per meeting and 2 co-chairs at $5,000 per year. You're looking at
If they hit that a certain amount
up
of
to the
meetings, if they have
$2,000, a
plus.
maximum of
But you're talking about
$42,000.
but what you're approving is that maximum amount, so, yes. Jim, and then, I'm sorry, I'll get back to you.
Well, that's okay.
Did you have another question?
Can I do a comment and not a question?
Sure.
I mean, I have no problem with Paige and Jennifer being compensated. It is a full-time job, essentially. I, as a board member, don't feel I need to be compensated for what I do. That's just my personal opinion.
Yes. we have-
I just walked in on this. I'm Jennifer D'Antoni, the vice chair. I've been on the school board over 14 years in Killington and here, and I don't. What I think is fair is really just mileage. I mean, that's what, and that I don't know what that'll sort of end up being, to be quite frank. But the things that I've thought it would have been fair to be reimbursed for are mileage and babysitting. For a lot of years, I've had to get babysitters. Like tonight, my husband is working, my kids are old enough now, but, you know, those kinds of things, I do think, it's not a matter of being paid like a salary to do this. You're doing this because you want to do it, and I feel like it's my responsibility and duty. But, like I said, the mileage, for me, it's over an hour of driving to every meeting, about an hour and 20 minutes. You know, I come for at least a meeting a week for something, and, you know, that ends up being, you know, over 50 miles for me. So I think that sort of thing, you know, whether we do this mileage or not, I don't really think it has to be a specific, I don't know what the mileage would be, honestly, what the compensation would be based on that kind of mileage. But as we're going to talk about tonight, Paige and I have discussed the idea that, quite frankly, once a month to meet is not enough. We're meeting every week. You know, Paige and I do meetings every week with Mary Beth. There's a finance committee meeting or a negotiations committee meeting at least once a week. You know, we're having these meetings once a month, but really it's not enough. And so what we're going to talk about tonight is increasing that to twice a month, and having once a month a meeting here and once a month a meeting at an elementary school in the district. So when I say it's an hour and 15 minutes for me to drive here tonight, you know, going to Reading is going to be even longer, you know, and so I think another way to look at it, I thank you, Jim, but I think another way to look at it may be mileage. I don't know what that would be. I mean, it may be, I don't know. I don't know.
So we have to address that.
Oh.
We have to vote on this, finish this, vote on this amendment first. If we wanted to go that route, we'd have to defeat this and go that way. There was another right here in the middle,
Yes.
and I'll get back to people
Just
who
from a
already
taxpayer
commented.
standpoint, I think these people should absolutely be supported, and for the size of the budget that they're dealing with, $5,000 is nothing, in my opinion. So I think they're more than due getting reimbursed for their time and mileage.
Thank you. I saw some other hands here.
Just in terms of the individual board members, I think that would be more of a motivating factor than anything else to make sure that people attend these board meetings and properly represent, you know, the proper districts. That's, you know, from my perspective anyway.
Did you have another comment, Jim, or you did?
So I looked at the per mileage, Jennifer, and then on top of it, it'd actually be probably more than what the $2,000 per is. I sit on, you're now saying 2 meetings a month. I sit on a finance committee. I sit on a policy committee meeting. We have a lot of work ahead of us. So if you want to pay me mileage, it'll be well above the $2,000, okay? Also, at the same time, by doing mileage, now we're incurring half the filing paperwork and giving it to somebody at the SU to file the paperwork, and you're taking that all into consideration. I just believe that this is the right way to do it, and I hope we can call the question and move on to a vote.
Yeah, if there are no other questions.
I just want to clarify that is it just for meetings, regular month or bi-monthly meetings, but not committees? Is that correct?
No, they're all meeting, each meeting.
It says per meeting, but there's a cap
Oh, right. Okay.
at $2,000.
I
So up to
understand.
40 meetings a year is what was
Thank you.
in the, yes. So does everyone, we're still just on the amendment to compensate the board members $50 per meeting attended, up to $2,000, and the co-chairs $5,000 per year. All those in favor of that amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Nay? The ayes appear to have it. The ayes.
You didn't include the moderator in the...
No, that
No,
was the
no,
amendment.
that's part of the.
We're just voting on the amendment?
The amendment first, then we get back to the full motion. Yep. So the ayes appear to have it, the ayes do have it. So the amendment, so now we have to vote on the entire motion as amended. So are there any other comments or questions about what Paige made as a motion was that the moderator be paid $50 per meeting, the clerk $0, and the treasurer $6,500 per year. Any questions or comments? And then we've amended it to cover the board members as you
just
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 voted.
information here, the clerk is Tim, and Tim is a board member.
Okay, that's what I was
So
wondering.
they're not zeroing out.
Thank you for that. So are there any other questions about that? The motion that's on the floor?
Just real quickly, I mean, under the circumstance that he is a board member, that's not always guaranteed to be the case. Should you vote in something for the clerk and then he would just waive it, or the stipulation that if
It's
you
just
double
for
the
1
week-
year anyway.
Oh, you have to do this every year?
Yes.
Compensation package? Okay.
Yes.
Makes sense.
Yes. Second.
For board members who live 2 minutes down the road and then don't have the mileage and feel like, and like Patty said, don't feel the need to be compensated, can they waive it? If they choose?
I assume you could, or donate it.
just a
But donate it to the
Donate
school.
it to the school.
Yeah, that's what, well, that's, because it's coming from the budget, so if you don't take it, then it just goes, it stays in the budget of the school.
Correct.
So you could also use it to pay for my babysitting. Jen's kid could babysit my kid.
Adam, we'll just put it in a pool.
Let's keep on track.
I just want to make one thing clear. This is not coming from the school budget. This is coming from the SU budget, which is close to $2 million, which is not voted on by the taxpayers. This is from the SU budget.
Okay.
I just want to be clear.
Okay.
You're not taking from a child. I would
Okay.
never ask for that.
Okay.
Any other questions about the article as amended? So, the article that we are voting on is to pay the moderator $50 per meeting, the clerk $0, the treasurer $6,500, the co-chairs $5,000 per year, and each board member up to $50 per meeting, up to $2,000 per year. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. So Article 4 is adopted. Article 5. Shall the voters of the Windsor Central Modified Unified Union School District authorize the Board of Directors under 16 Vermont Statutes annotated 562, Section 9, to borrow money by issuance of bonds or notes not in excess of anticipated revenue for the school year?
So moved.
Thank you, Jim. Second, Paige. Are there any questions about this motion? Seeing none, we will vote on Article 5. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Article 6, to transact any other school business thought proper when met. Are there any questions or comments? We can't do anything binding under this. Any action we took here would be just advisory. If there's nothing, I would entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting.
So moved.
Second.
By Jim, second by Vito. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Good evening, we're going to get started. This is the one and only meeting of the year that is started by the superintendent, and I have one important job, and then I will hand it over. So my role is to call for a nomination of the board chair. So do I have a nomination for the chair of the board?
I make a motion that we keep Jennifer and Paige as co-chairs.
I think I'm technically vice chair.
Vice chair?
Yeah.
Okay, I make a motion that we make Paige the chair and Jennifer the vice chair.
Second?
Pam seconded? Okay. Any other calls for nominations? Okay, we have a nomination on the floor for Paige Hiller to be the chair of the board and for Jennifer Yanantoni to be the vice chair. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? And the nominations pass unanimously. Paige, it's all yours.
Thank you. So welcome to all the new board members. We also have to vote in a clerk. Do I have a nomination for clerk?
I'd like to nominate Tim Bishop.
Do I have a
Second.
Thank you, Sam. Any other nominations? All those in favor of Tim Bishop as clerk, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. Motion is passed. Operational decisions, does everybody have their board packet? Okay, because we're just going to follow through with this. So we need to approve our regular board meeting schedule, and you will see that we are going to start having 2 meetings a month because we have so much to get through, and we felt like it's very difficult to be in our 3rd hour of a meeting and focus and make smart decisions sometimes at the end of the night when we're all very tired. Mary Beth has, and Raina has worked on putting together a meeting schedule for us. Does this include this year as well?
No, you approved this year's calendar at the last reorganizational meeting, so we would just amend that calendar.
Okay, so we will be amending the calendar to add a second meeting through June, because we think it's really important to get our work done. But this will be the calendar that we approve starting July 1st, correct, Raina?
Correct.
Okay. Do I need approval for this, Mary Beth?
We should probably vote it, yeah.
Okay. So can I have a motion on the table to approve the board meeting schedule starting July 1st, 2019?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Bob? Any questions, thoughts, questions, concerns? Bob?
I just had a question, not about next year's schedule, but through June. Is there a consistent day? Are we
Mondays.
Mondays?
Yes.
Okay.
We're going to stick to Mondays. We will have conflicts with Barnard because Barnard also has Monday meetings. So there will be some meetings that are not 2 weeks later, but 1 week later, the way that it falls. So we'll do the best that we can.
Meaning that we're going to work around Barnard's schedules?
Yes,
Okay.
and until the end of June.
Okay.
If I can, I've got the dates that, in looking at the calendar, seem to make sense for the remainder of the year. So if I can propose April 1st, April 8th, May 6th, May 13th, June 3rd, and June 10th. So it's basically adding an extra meeting a month, and one of them each month had already been scheduled.
Correct. Jim?
So the following year, are we going to the 2nd, which we're keeping the 2nd Monday of the month? And will we be doing the 2nd and 4th Monday of the month?
I believe that's how it falls.
It's almost always the 2nd and the 4th,
Yes.
with a couple of issues around holiday recesses and Veterans
Yeah.
Day,
Right.
for the most part.
That way it'll be easy to warn 2nd and
Yeah.
4th.
Yep. Yes, Pamela?
So, since there will be more meetings, will they end at 8 o'clock?
That's
Do I hear
That's
7:30?
the goal, is to have them for
No more
about
10 PM meeting ends.
till 8 o'clock max. We're hoping actually 7:30, so we have an hour and a half meeting, a 2-hour meeting maximum. That is the goal that we should be setting for ourselves. And I hope that we can achieve that. All those in favor of approving the board's meeting schedule for 2019-2020 with the amendment from March through June of 2019 as well, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. We've passed our board meeting schedule. We've also scheduled a board retreat, which will be in June. The date is, I believe, June 10th? First. I knew it was a 1 in there. So June 1st, please mark your calendars for that.
Where are we retreating to?
We're retreating here.
Nowhere glamorous.
You don't go anywhere really fancy.
Retitle it.
It could be at the Woodstock Inn, but it's probably going to be at the SU or here.
So we have a
If I
meeting on
could.
June 1st.
Yeah.
June 1st. Right.
I'm going to have Sherry just share very briefly the big prize at the end of the meeting.
So we're doing a Summer Soak fundraiser on the 1st from 2 to 5 o'clock. And the focus activity will be using a blue foam machine water slide. So we will be creating that in the back field. It won't burn the grass, graduation will be fine, all those things have been talked about. So we can close retreat with a slide down, and the blue foam is 3 feet deep. And
Wait,
have
can
to
you wear
goggles.
clothes though? You don't have to
You
be
have
like
to,
in bathing
no,
suits,
there are
do
no
you?
bathing suits, it's, shorts and t-shirts.
Clothes.
But you do have to.
Hey, you need
All right,
clothes.
Sam, the younger ones can be in bathing suits, but
So it's a community-wide event. It'll be with all the PTOs. We're going to invite them to have activities, so for fundraisers, as well as the classes of the high school, and invite all our communities to come on the campus to raise scholarship money for summer soakers.
sounds great.
Yeah.
I like it.
Question?
Yes.
So I would have asked this when we were talking about doing 2 meetings a month. I was like, well, that means we probably won't be doing retreats, but now we're talking about doing retreats. How many retreats are we talking about in addition to 2?
This is just one.
Just the one, okay. We did like 2 or 3 last
We
year, I
did
believe.
2 last summer.
Yeah, okay. And but after nothing in July and August?
No.
Okay.
So you can go on vacation. and
Oh,
enjoy
I'm
your
just
son.
working, that's what I'm saying. Those are my busiest months, so.
No, so we don't have anything planned for July or August. We're gonna actually have our first meeting of next year in September instead of August.
Okay.
Because so many people are getting ready for school with their
Yeah.
kiddos. And also teachers are getting ready, administrators are getting ready as well for the school year to start. So we thought it would best to let them get in their groove and then we can have our first meeting.
And then just another question, with the 2 meetings a month, is there maybe any talk of having some of them with like part of the committees meeting together and talking instead of also 2 meetings a month plus a subcommittee? Like some of these second meetings being like a committee driven and where all the committees are talking together or something?
Jennifer and I, for subcommittees, are going to start reevaluating our subcommittees.
Okay.
Because we have such a large board,
Yeah,
we're not really feeling the need that every single person needs to sit on a subcommittee.
okay.
And that I sometimes feel like we make subcommittees so that every single person can sit on a subcommittee. And sometimes we're counterproductive instead of being productive with
Yeah.
our time. So we are going to reevaluate what subcommittees are really effective for us, what may be temporary subcommittees.
Yep.
Like campus configurations, maybe a temporary subcommittee for now, and then maybe rolling into a different committee after that, so.
Yeah,
think-
no, I totally think that's a great
Yeah.
idea. I feel like that, I would think that would be a much better use of time. I was
And we
just
also
curious.
feel that as new board members, there's a very high learning curve as well. And sometimes just coming to the board meetings twice a month will be enough to start digging your teeth into.
Couldn't agree more.
Okay. So, all in favor of the annual board retreat being on June 1st, 2019, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, motion has been approved. Designated places for postings of meetings, meeting agendas and minutes. It's on your packet, page 4, of where we tend to post everything. I don't think we need to approve this. I think it's just pretty standardized that we are putting them prior to town meeting. Special meeting information will be posted in the designated sites at least 24 hours in advance of the special meetings. We use the Vermont Standard and the Mountain Times as our newspapers. All of our meeting agendas and minutes are available on the WCSU's website. And I believe everything is posted also at our town halls as well. Correct? This board uses Robert's Rules of order for small boards. It's been a interesting first year and a half with such a large board. I think that it can get complicated at times. What Jennifer and I ask is that people be respectful, that if we are going to make criticisms, to make them constructive criticisms, to be thoughtful in who we are speaking to and what we're speaking about. As a board, I think we should be role models, not only to our taxpayers, but to our children. And I think we need to sometimes think about that, is how we carry ourselves in that position as board members. Also that we ask that you raise your hand when you have something that you would like to say on a topic, and Jennifer and I will address you. We ask that all board members are given the opportunity to speak before you speak a second or third time. So that's pretty much, do you have any other input?
No, that's great.
Okay.
Madam Chairwoman,
Yes?
I just wanted to know, we have two distinguished moderators in the room. Do we have more than two? Have I got that wrong? Kevin, Matt, who are well-skilled in Robert's rules. And
Yes.
it wouldn't be bad sometime at the board to have a quick introduction to Robert's Rules of Order.
Yes, I'd love that. We are also, tonight will be our first board training. Jennifer and I are thinking that we're going to bring more people in to train us in different areas so that we can be a really strong board overall. I think that's really important for us, especially because we spend so much time working together. And we have really important work to do for our kiddos. So I think that's a great idea, Bob. I'll actually write that down so we don't forget. On page 5 is a code of ethics for the Vermont school board members. I will be signing it tonight and handing it in to Raina. I hope that everybody will read this and also sign it and hand it in to Raina, and keep these things in mind when you're at your meetings. I'm not going to say anything else. We're all adults, but I think it's important to practice this code of ethics in how we maintain ourselves. Any additions?
No, I think it's a good thing for all of us to read every once in a while, even those of us who have been on school boards for years. You know, most importantly, just to remember that, because it's sometimes difficult for new members. You're out in the community and people will ask you questions all the time and ask for your opinions on things, and this really gives you a good baseline as to how to answer some of those questions, how to direct those questions. You know, remember, you know, your distinction between a board member and oftentimes for most of us parents. So I think it's very valuable for us all to read and reflect on pretty regularly.
Also, for communication practices, we have always taught our board members that if a parent comes to you with an issue, they'll pretty much, you should be sending that parent to teacher first, administrator second, superintendent third, and we're the last source for a parent to come to us in case there's a grievance or a lawsuit. It's very important that we don't get involved in the process early on, because then that may sway how we speak about the issue if we're called by a lawyer who wants to talk to us about it. But it's really important that we always send them through that order in process of communication. It's good practice for us all. sometimes as board members and as parents, we wear two hats, and we feel like it's easy to just call up the principal at times when we have problems, or the superintendent, because we sit on the board, but we also must remember that you've got to go through that designated order of communication. Yep.
And I just want to remind the whole board that if there is an issue that happens to affect me or my child in the school, I will recuse myself from the board and take that avenue.
Yeah.
So just because I'm on the board doesn't mean I don't have a say in
Right.
if I want to take that step.
Yes. Board development opportunities and attendance. Obviously, it's really important that you're here at as many meetings as you possibly can make. We also understand that this is not your full-time job, this is your volunteer job. But I think it's really important for you to be as well-read in the minutes that have occurred in the last meeting, as well as to read your packet before you come to meetings. Raina and Mary Beth and Jennifer and I spend a lot of time creating what the agenda is going to be, and of course Mary Beth and Raina put together all of the information to be included in your packets. So it's really important that you read up on things so that you're aware and aware of the issues that we're going to be talking about, so you can make an intelligent decision on how you want to vote on a topic or an issue. If you feel like it's a conflict of interest for you because you have a spouse who works for the school system, or that it affects you personally, you can recuse yourself from the vote if you so choose. There are some tough votes that will come ahead of us, and sometimes it's hard to separate your personal feelings and emotions from kind of your board role. But I think that the more you learn about a topic, the more helpful that information will be in your decision-making process. Right now, currently, we have a finance committee, a policy committee. We are a policy-driven board. We also have a negotiations committee. We have a community outreach, engagement or outreach? Engagement committee. And we also have a campus configurations committee. And we'll start reassessing those things. Newest board members, if one of those kind of piques your interest, let Jennifer and I know, send us an email.
If you have some experience or,
yeah,
professional background that might be helpful, please.
We welcome that.
Let us know.
I know that on my negotiations committee, I've been with Melena and Patty for the last 5 years? 3 years?
It feels like 5.
It actually feels like 10. But I am training them to take over my position so I can retire from negotiations. And they will need a third person to join them. So we welcome somebody on the negotiations committee. We also welcome somebody to come on to finance. And if you have experience with numbers and finance and kind of a good mind for all of that, that would be great. And there you go with that. Local and statewide education advocacy responsibilities. I don't want to talk about that.
We have enough issues in front of us to get policies together.
We'll leave that up to our trainer tonight to talk about that issue. And I think that's pretty much the lay of the land for our annual reorganization meeting checklist. Do you have anything else to go over? Yes, we do.
Let me look up these things.
We have to go over these
Yes.
things. Yeah. So, we don't have any amendments to the agenda, correct? Community engagement and public, welcome public and all. Thank you for staying. I appreciate that. Would anybody like to say anything? Do you have any questions, comments?
Does your board want to introduce themselves?
Oh, that would be good. Thank you. My name is Paige Hiller. I represent the Woodstock area. I've been on the board for 13, 14 years. I have 2 children. One is a 10th grader and one is a 12th grader. And I actually really love what I do and have really enjoyed the relationships that I've developed over the last 13, 14 years with fellow board members. And I said this to somebody the other day, I also really love the relationships that I've developed with teachers and administrators and superintendents and special ed directors, and where's my finance guy? Because they've taught me so much about the education industry, and it's fascinating to me. My mother was a teacher for 40 years, and so it's been really great. And those relationships, I think, have made me probably a better board member, because I have a fuller understanding of what's going on within our entire district versus just from a taxpayer's perspective or a parent perspective. So thank you for voting me on.
I'm Jennifer Yanatoni. I'm from Killington. I was on the Killington board for Paige and I got on the same year, 13 or 14 years ago, and have really enjoyed being on this board as well. I have 2 children, a 7th grader and a 9th grader at Woodstock, and lots of work to do. And I'm very thankful to the new people who joined the board. I appreciate it. It's a lot of work, but it's absolutely worth it. So welcome.
Adam Amley, I'm from Reading. This is my 2nd year on the board. I have a 1st grader and a soon-to-be pre-K, pre-kindergartner in Reading.
I'm Morgan Saylor. I'm representing Plymouth. I have a preschooler and a 1st grader at Woodstock Elementary School, and this will be my 1st year on the board.
I'm Tim Bishop from Reading. I've been on the middle school, high school for probably 6 years, I think, before the new district board. I have a junior in the high school and a graduate from a couple years ago, and I'm very excited to be on the board and continuing being here.
Jim Half from Killington. I have a 10th grader in the school, a freshman and a senior in college that went through this school, and I was on the middle school, high school board for, I believe, 5 years. So.
Pamela Fraser from Barnard, and I'm trying to remember when this board started. Has it been a year or 2 years?
Year and a half.
Year and a half, okay, so I've been on this board for a year and a half. And I have a 8th grader here at Woodstock.
My name is Matthew Huff. I'm from Bridgewater. My wife and I moved here 3 years ago. We have 7th and an 8th grader and a 19-month-old, soon to be going to somewhere. And my wife's family's from Barnard, and I'm a stonemason.
I'm Jen Flaster, also representing Plymouth with Morgan. Been living in Plymouth for 12 years. I have a 1st grader at Woodstock and soon to be pre-K at Woodstock. And I'm excited to be on this board.
I'm Claire DeBecco. I've been in the area for 15 years, but this is my 1st year on the board. And I'm from Woodstock, and I have an 8th grader, a 6th grader, and a 1st grader, all at Woodstock, in the Woodstock system.
Bob Coates. I represent Pomfret with Patty, and I have 3 kids, a senior, an 8th grader, and a 5th grader in the school system. I was on the Pomfret School Board, Prosper Valley School Board, and the Middle High School School Board, and I co-chair the Configuration and Enrollment Growth Committee.
Hi, I'm Sam DiNatale. I have a 5th grader at Wes. I am a Wes and Woodstock Union graduate, and I'm a local business owner.
Hi, I'm Elena Egan, also representing Woodstock. I have
third grader and a 4-year-old, September born, so another year before he hits our school system. Also a local business owner like Sam and teacher. I currently teach middle school and high school French and Spanish, not in this district.
Patty Kosmikis. I am from Pomfret. I was previously on the Prosper Valley School Board. I've been on this board for a year and a half, and I have a 4th grader at the Prosper Valley School.
Can Lou speak? Can I hear him?
Hi,
Lou.
This is Lou. No,
We can't hear
I
him.
have no volume, Lou, sorry.
Lou Baconi, he's from Woodstock. He's got like 20 kids. No, he's got 5.
Who's got 20 kids?
No, I'm just kidding. 5.
He has 5 kids.
I don't know what's
Okay. Any other comments from the public?
Just one other thing, you should point out to your board members, if they miss a meeting, you have a wonderful resource right there.
Yes.
You can watch the meeting. When I was on the select
At
board,
any
that was.
hour of the day.
You
which
can
I
go
love.
online and find it. I mean, if you miss and you want to catch up, that's a tremendous resource
It
to
is.
hear what was actually said. So take advantage of it.
Is this actually being broadcasted with like Facebook Live like they do for some of the other meetings?
Not right now. But
What?
not right now. Macy
Okay.
usually does, but he fell.
Oh,
It's
okay.
at it's in.
Oh, okay. But
So
in
not
other
this-
meetings, not this one, but other meetings?
Occasionally, yes.
Okay.
Or
Tim's being shy, he has a question.
No, I was just waiting for the opportunity. Raina's been doing the minutes. I wasn't sure if we needed a motion or any kind of,
No.
for her to do the minutes. We don't need anything? Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Okay. We have one new board member who is not here tonight, which is Ben Ford from Woodstock. And then Bryce Samuel is from Barnard, and he's not here this evening. And then we do have still an open position from Bridgewater.
I
Other
have
than,
tried
and you're
desperately
gonna
to
keep
fill.
trying and trying. But we have a pretty full board, which is really good, that we only have one empty position this year, compared to previous years where we lost both your members from Plymouth. And then we lost Perrin for a little bit as well. So I think this is a strong group, so it's a good thing. Okay. No other comments? Okay, we'll move on. Mary Beth, do you want to add anything to your superintendent's report?
Just again, highlighting a couple of things that are in the report. One is that we had our 4th strategic planning design team meeting on Friday. I think we are getting very, very close to a final product to bring out that will still be in draft form to communities and to our faculty. So that is progressing well. I wanted to let the board know, one of the things that had come up as a concern from the Reading community was if too many people chose school choice. And I just want to give you an update at that. At this point, we only have one family from Reading that has asked to move for school choice, just so that you have a sense of that. The first round will actually close on Friday, so I'll have very specific numbers in April, but that, given the concerns, is really good news, I think. And then I also wanted to make folks aware that our West pre-K is already full for next year.
I just have one question regarding the strategic planning. Is this the strategic planning to support the portrait of a graduate?
Yes.
Okay.
So this is I can do a quick little review of where we've been. It's been a little bit of a whirlwind tour. But we started last spring with a Portrait of a Graduate working group, and we met for 3 full days over the course of 3 months, and we articulated the critical outcomes for our graduates. And those outcomes are, students that are self-directed, paying attention to academic excellence, looking at skillful communication, critical problem solving, and stewardship. We then took those outcomes and said, okay, how are we going to get there? So we have been, for the past 4 or 5 months, working on a strategic plan that will address what's our roadmap to graduate students with those particular pieces. So I've had a group of about 30 to 35 that have been on our strategic planning design team, vetting the ideas that we're bringing forth to them. And so we have finished that vetting process, got some final feedback on Friday. And in April, we'll actually be going out to communities to share what we've drafted and to ask communities members to give us feedback. With the idea that in June, we will come to you with a final form for the board to vote on. With the idea being that this will be a 5-year plan and is really setting the vision and the direction for the district.
So is this also the how to the 5 areas of focus to the portrait of a graduate?
That's a great way to think about it. So the portrait of a graduate is the what?
Yep.
And the strategic plan is how we're getting there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do we have a schedule set up for community forums?
Right now, we are finalizing our presenters, but we are anticipating that it's going to be April 11th and April 25th. So as soon as that's finalized, we'll get communications out to folks.
Okay, great. Any other questions from board members? All right. Do I have a motion on the table to approve the consent agenda? So moved. Pamela, do I have a second? Do I have any questions? All those in favor of the motion on the table, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it, the motion is passed. Okay, Jennifer, take it away for policy.
This month, I'm sorry. I didn't get a paper one, which means I have to keep going between like 20 pages. Okay, so Jim and Pamela, I'll focus this for you. We've got second readings on 3 different policies tonight. Do you want to comment on any feedback you've gotten from board members or from administration on these 3 policies?
We've not received any feedback on any of them. If you recall, the first one is required, so there's probably not going to be too much to say about that.
Yep.
And yeah, we haven't received any questions or feedback.
And just for my own, just to confirm, the proficiency-based graduation requirement, that's a graduation-only requirement
Right,
that
so-
doesn't speak to the grading system?
Exactly, we're still discussing the proficiency-based grading system, but this is just having to do with the graduation requirements, so it's separated out.
Is there a separate policy on grading?
There will be a
There will
separate
be.
policy. We're not actually calling it proficiency-based grading policy, we're calling it grading policy.
Do we presently have a grading
We're
policy?
working on it.
We don't presently have one.
Well, we currently have approval from the board to move forward on, I believe it's still on the pilot program, the proficiency-based grading system. Okay, and it's a multiple-year pilot program that's been going on. We're trying to put it into a policy of which way we're going. And we're meeting up with Garen, Jen Staten on this. And we have another meeting scheduled for
April 6th.
April 6th.
At 2 o'clock.
At the SU, if anybody is interested. So that's not in front of us tonight. And it won't be in front of us probably for, another month or two on the grading system. The proficiency-based graduation requirement that we have in front of us was a state mandated policy, graduation requirement. Garen is here. Most of these, pretty much these items follow the graduation requirement that we had prior to this policy. It hits the different requirements, but we were doing that before, prior to this graduation requirement. So, if you follow the state, you will see that the state right now, at one point said 2020 was going to be where we had to implement it. And now the state just came out last week.
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago, and it said basically, they may push off on it, and hold off, but I believe.
Graduation or
The
grading?
Graduate. The state has never
Doesn't
said
have a
that we gotta
policy on
change
grading.
the policy. The state has never said you needed to change the grading system. The state said we needed by 2020 to have a graduation requirement fulfilled. And we're putting it into a policy. And what I'm saying is that even prior to the state saying that everything in here was in our other, we were already ahead on the graduation part for this policy. So now we're just making it into.
But now the state has given, has pushed it back one way.
Basically, people were worried because this deadline was coming, but the state is now sort of saying, well, we don't really care about the deadline because it's part of the educational quality standards and it's looser. The article is kind of surprising because it was a deadline, but now they're kind of saying, not really.
But
So-
if you read the article, what you
Yeah.
really find out in the article is that it's the same confusion that we've been having, and, you know, we've had a grading system, and most schools have been putting a grading system into the graduation. So once again, I believe we jumped ahead of the curve and actually pulled it out before the state said. And I think that's where most of the confusion is how to go about the grading with this graduation requirement. And that's what we're working on with Garen and staff right now.
And I do recommend that everybody read this. If you just look in the Digger, the last two articles on proficiency-based grading, talk about this new discussion that the AOE is having. And it'll summarize what's going on.
But the last part, this graduation requirement, there's nothing in here that is a shock. It
Yeah.
is what this school has been doing for some, I would say, 8 years, Karen, probably, where we.
Oh, I think more than that, probably.
Longer than that.
And we worked with Garen and Sherry to kind of clean up some of the things that had changed over time, and it's just a little cleaner too.
So we need a motion then, if there's no other questions or changes that we want to make to these policies currently, 1, 2, and 3, we need a motion to warn the adoption of these 3 policies
at the next meeting.
At our next meeting. Have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Jen seconded it. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion has been approved. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Paige, sorry.
Yeah.
Paige, did we vote the consent agenda?
Yes.
We did? I'm sorry, I totally missed that.
Went right by.
Whoops.
Someone made a motion over there to
Who motioned to
adjourn.
adjourn?
Moved.
Second.
Yes.
Is it at all appropriate to hear from Garen? I was just curious to hear anything more about the climate change walkout. I don't want to open up a huge, gigantic conversation, but since the principal's here, and it sounds like an interesting situation of students wanting to exercise their right of expression, but school rules, I felt like maybe it would be a good time to get an update.
Sure. So I sent out a communication today to parents and staff who have students within this facility, so if you don't, you may not have seen it. So there's a global call to student action on Friday the 15th, a global call to take a stand. The language is like this. The language is that there is a global crisis of climate change, but the adults of the world are not treating it as a crisis. And so students globally are mobilizing to make it a crisis. And I believe that, or to create a crisis. And what the action is to not attend school on Friday. I mean, that's the piece we're working with. I've been working with student leaders for probably the past 2 weeks or so on what are some ways that they can be part of this movement, express their political speech, express their views, to be connected with this. We've done some things in past years. If you remember, last year we did facilitate students doing a walkout for gun violence. This year we facilitated students who wanted to speak out for transgender rights. And so we have a way where we work with free speech forums on campus. But these students felt that to really be within the parameters of this movement, that they wanted to leave campus. And that's where my authority as principal of this campus ends. And so what we can do is we can support students with their expression of their ideas, their political thoughts. But when students choose to leave campus, they are stepping into an unknown or unsupervised place off campus. And so what I've worked with the students is just to understand that if they choose to make that choice, then they are in violation of a school rule to kind of step up and leave campus. So it's an interesting play, as Bob was saying, between how can we be a supportive place of student rights and expression, which is vital to our educational purpose, but at the same time, on our building level, what are the actions we're doing to ensure safety and security of our students? High school students also asked for a forum to discuss the issues on campus today, and they did do this during the advisory block. Students did a very effective job of a presentation of here are the issues and why we think it's important or it's happening. Also presenting if students were to choose to do a violation of school rules, what the consequences would that be and how would they work with it. I'll be working with some of those same student presenters and middle school staff to speak with 7th and 8th grade students on Wednesday during the advisory block. So that's some pieces. Bob, are there questions or thoughts around that?
Mine was some of the safety issues that might be involved. I didn't know what with the leaving campus meant they were walking down Route 4.
Right. So students, student leaders have reached out to the town of Woodstock to go through the select board, also with the police department to see is there a way that there could be a police escort or to have permits for their process. And I believe that both have been denied, both on process as far as late applications, but also the police were put in a situation too where here's an action that's not sanctioned by the school, and they did not feel it would be proper for them to be supporting that sanction with the police in that way. So as far as this time, I believe the student route, if they were to choose campus that I've heard them speak about, would be to go from campus across the Steel Bridge, College Hill, into town that way. But there are no formal support systems from the Woodstock Police Department or the Sheriff's Department or the State Police that I know of.
Can I just ask a question? I was a little confused by the sentence that mentioned that they could be arrested by the police, because, I mean, they could be arrested by the police after school at any time, right? So why was that there? Was that because there's no process, basically?
So the student leaders have asked me, they said, look, any information you get, please share with us immediately, so we students know what's happening. I was called by the police department this morning and informed that may be the situation, so I put in for that reason. So the police were just, I think, putting out that notion. Again, just in the spirit of keeping the communications as open and transparent as possible.
So, I'm sorry, I'm ignorant. Truancy is still against the law?
No, that's not within the violation. Truancy repeated could be what students would be, great question here. If students were to be in a violation of an ordinance or law, it would probably be something like parading without a permit, use of the village green without a permit, blocking traffic, those sorts of things.
Got it.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
But if the student isn't in school and is at a protest, but has permission from a parent, there is no truancy.
Correct.
Correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Just maybe a lot of notes in school. I don't know, but.
Is it,
Yeah,
is
I
it,
mean,
is
what
it
it- right.
acceptable for me to write a note, even though my student's not in the States right now, to write a letter to you saying that my daughter will not be in school because they're going to protest for climate change? Is that an acceptable note?
So parents are in charge of kind of what they deem as a reason to keep their student in and out of school, to make an assessment of whatever the things that they feel they need to participate in. Kind of our role in the school is once kind of transfer of responsibility, protection for the day has been transferred to the school, that we're in kind of protection of that. When a child is at home with their parents are the authorities for that child.
So basically, if they're not on campus, it's not the school's responsibility for their safety.
Correct.
Or legality state.
Thank you.
That it's then the parent's responsibility, and that's the choice of the parent and the student. So you were pretty much just trying to make everybody aware of those differences between the two.
Right. That's right.
The only other thing I can think of is just that the advice given to the leaders of the walkout group that they talk with the police so that for some reason there's not some confusion as to whether this is a parade or they're just walking single file, and things don't just sort of escalate. Not that they will, but that there's clarity about what their intent is. I'm hoping that can happen so that the police have an understanding of what their intent is.
To my understanding, there's been a pretty open communication, and I think that is there, but I'll check with that as well, Bob. Thank you.
Thank you.
You may want to mention that they're going to want to wear boots if they're walking down College Hill on Friday.
It's mud season now.
By Friday, it's going to be.
The forecast is for rain and warm weather.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. All right. Thank you, everybody, for attending.